Game 1 is mere days away, and I've got my full preview and prediction of the Ducks season opening tilt against Montana State. Plus, a recent staff addition only strengthens Oregon's ability to continue to land top defensive backs. All roads lead to the middle of I-5 on this edition of That Show Out West.
This place has everything. In fact, the grass is damn green in Eugene.
That performance deserves a holy wallawa.
It's a feeling you cannot explain.
This place is louder than any other venue in the Big Ten.
This program is staged to compete and to win championships.
Welcome to the Big Ten, Oregon.
Welcome to That Show Out West for That Team Out West. I'm Ted LaBrue. I wanted to begin this show today by sending out a big-time thank you to all of you that have dialed in. We've been growing a lot since I've been back from Oregon in this last week, 2 weeks or so. Man, we have just been rocket ship, rocket fuel. We are really growing over the 1,700 subscriber mark now on YouTube. We continue to grow on the audio side of things on Apple and Spotify, as well as the social media platforms on Twitter, on Instagram, and TikTok. A lot of you have done the Lord's work by following and subscribing on those platforms. For those of you that haven't, let's get dialed in. Let's get plugged in together, because I am excited about what this season is going to offer, not only here on TSOW, but what's going to be going on, more importantly, maybe on the field for the Oregon Ducks. So make sure you're dialed in, you're plugged in on all sides, all different platforms, because there's different kinds of content on each one of these platforms, and I'm excited for Saturday. We're all excited for Saturday. Following the game on Saturday, immediately when that clock hit zero and Dan Lanning goes to midfield for the post-game handshake, I will have my game recap, my written game recap, up on Scoop Duck, so make sure you check that out. Join the community. We got a great community, of course, over there. And then after that's done, about probably, I'd say within a half an hour of the conclusion of the game, that post-game show out west will be live on YouTube. I'm going to have my takeaways from the game. We're going to be talking about top performers of the game, and then it's your turn. And then this is where we interact back and forth on the TSOW talk and text line, 541-357-6390. You can call in and we can talk about the 60 minutes of football that we just saw. You can text and you can leave a voicemail right now as well, and we can kind of interact that way before this thing kicks off on Saturday. Folks, you know, it's been about 9 months ago, this thing started. I kind of came on with a short video talking about Jaron Kavawe Sagapulatelli. Remember that whole 6-week crazy saga? Man, that was something. That was something from the flip to signing day from the transfer, and him and eventually ended up at Cal. He's going to be the starting quarterback at Cal. So between then and now, we've talked about a lot of stuff in between then over this last time, and I kind of took a little bit of a leap of faith, and I had a lot of confidence that that leap of faith would pay off, and it certainly has. You guys welcomed me over the last year. Now I'm kind of welcoming you into this subsection of the flock. So I'm really pumped to get this season kicked off. I think that's an understatement. I've got 2 words that have kind of described my feelings right now, and it's holy wallawa. The season is here, folks. Of course, Saturday is the inaugural game day for the Ducks of the 2025 season, but it is a final game day for one Lee Corso. He will be making his final college game day selection. He will be on his final college game day broadcast this Saturday on site for the Texas and Ohio State matchup, a battle of top 3 teams out there. And college football is just going to seem a lot different. Saturdays are going to seem a lot different without Lee Corso putting on that mascot head just before those 12 p.m. Eastern kickoffs. But more on that in just a moment. When I was formulating my thoughts of how I wanted to give my tribute, what I wanted to say in terms of my view on the impact that Lee Corso has made on college football, I think this is what I settled on. I think College Game Day as a whole, I think ESPN as a whole, have kind of taken steps down in quality. It's not what it once was. And I don't think I'm the only person that holds that thought. You know, I spend my Saturday mornings a lot different than I did before. I used to watch College Game Day religiously. Okay, if I missed 5 minutes of College Game Day, it almost seemed like the end of the world. If I wasn't there at the start when Big and Rich came on, I mean, that seemed like the end of the world. But even like now with my Saturday mornings where I'm eating a nice breakfast on the deck, my wife and I go for a walk down by the lake because, hey, I'm about to dial in. I'm about to dial in on a lot of football. So I got to get outside. I got to get my fresh air before that happens. It's interesting because even that considered, I always find my way in front of a television at 10:50 a.m. Central Time when the Saturday selections begin. I always find myself glued to the television around 10:58 a.m. Central Time, seeing which direction Lee Corso is going to go on, which mascot head he is going to be able to put in. That has a ultra strong drawing power, I think, from folks like me that maybe don't watch college football pregame shows as much as I used to. He always has been must-see television, must-see entertainment to kind of kick off every Saturday. You know, it's interesting. I was kind of putting some more thought into this. Is like next week, week 3, week 4, week 5. It's just going to it feels like we won't be able to kick off the Saturday, because it always felt when Lee put on that mascot hat, it's like, all right, that happened, a great conclusion, now we can start. Now we can officially start the day. And, you know, when you kind of get these weeks going on now, it's just going to feel, there's going to be this empty feeling. I kind of compared it to, you know, maybe somebody, if you've lost a dog and you've had a dog for 10 years and you've had a dog for 12 years and you're used to that relationship with your canine, and, you know, you go to the closet to maybe get some dog food and you're used to putting it out, and, you know, and then all of a sudden the dog's not there. You don't hear maybe the footsteps anymore. You're just so used to that routine. You're used to grabbing the leash and going out for a walk, and all of a sudden, like us as college football fans, we're going to go week 2, week 3, week 4, week 5. We're going to go out and we're going to grab that leash, and we're going to be like, oh, there's nothing there now. There's going to be a little bit of an empty feeling inside. But I think that really speaks to the impact and the legacy that Lee has really left. That feeling will exist when he's gone, and he has made that much of a difference within the college football world. Of course, we know it, man. We know the relationship between Lee Corso and Eugene. Lee Corso and the Duck. Lee has made 11 trips to Eugene. He's picked correctly 8 times, so an 8-3 record while in the state of Oregon. Losses were 2007 to Cal, and then 2012 and 2018 to Stanford across all broadcasts. So that includes away games as well, in which he picked Oregon to win. Corso went 14-7. That's a pretty good record. Now, he did, of course, miss the Oregon and Ohio State game in 2024, and that's a bummer, certainly. His last visit to Eugene will go down as the 2022 show when they faced off against UCLA. Some moments that really stand out to me, of course, when College Game Day was on campus for that Fright Night Halloween game in 2009, when number 10 Oregon did beat number 4 USC by 27. How about Lee? You got Phil Knight on the set, by the way. Lee Corso, he hops on the motorcycle and rides off. ESPN had that as a top 10 moment in College Game Day history. And then the very next year in Los Angeles, I remember watching this one live where Corso picked Oregon. You got Will Ferrell getting in on the set, and they're kind of getting in there and they're mixing it up a little bit, man. Saturdays, they just won't be the same, especially in maybe some of these big games where College Game Day comes onto campus in Eugene. But Lee left he does leave an undeniable and maybe an unfillable hole within the hearts of a lot of college football fans. His uniqueness, his passion, his excitement, it perfectly embodies exactly what college football is. I'll be tuning in. I know you'll be tuning in. Lee has made a difference, certainly, on all of us. You know, I think one of the funnest parts, now that we're in the season, one of the funnest parts week by week, especially on these Thursday shows, are going to be evaluating and really reacting to some of these uniform drops and the unveiling of which uniform combinations the Ducks will be having on a week-by-week basis. And, man, they're starting off with a bang. Now, I do like the more modern-looking uniforms. You know, you have those all blacks that they wore in some big games last year, wore it against Ohio State in October, wore it against Penn State during the Big Ten championship game. But these more traditional-looking uniforms are some of my favorite, with those greens and those yellows that just pop. And on a uniform, I love a great alternating colors uniform where you have color 1, color 2, color 1, color 2, and all the way down from head to toe. And that's exactly what this Game 1 uniform certainly has. I think that they wore these sets of combinations for the first couple of games last year. Idaho, Boise State. I think Maryland had this exact combination when it came to the jersey and the pants more than the helmet. In just a minute, you know, Ohio State, I think, had the white pants as well with the chrome helmet. I was in the Rose Bowl. But man, that helmet, that is one of the best winged helmets. I think it is in the conversation for the GOAT as far as winged helmets are concerned, with the yellow helmet and then the green wings. They are starting off pretty good, man. They are starting off with a bang as far as the thread's concerned. And I think, like, on a week-by-week basis, I'm going to do like a rolling rankings of this uniform. So if I like week 2's uniform better than week 1, you'll have, hey, number 1 is week 2 and number 2 is week 1. And we'll kind of go on throughout the season. So looking forward to seeing what this design team has cooked up for the rest of the year. The next thing that I wanted to talk about on the show today is a quasi trip down the Oregon recruiting trail. It's not about the high schoolers, it's not about the prospects, it's not about the guys that are being recruited. It's about a guy that's joining the Oregon staff that is going to be the recruiting. And boy, does he have a strong track record, in an Oregon uniform. The General, Verone McKinley, is going to be joining the Oregon Ducks staff in a recruiting role. The official title will be the Director of Personnel Strategy, helping out Chris Hampton to continue to bring in these elite level defensive backs. It only strengthens what they're going to be doing on the trail at that position, because, man, this guy has a flawless resume. And he was an Oregon safety from 2018 to 2021, a freshman All-American in 2019. How about first-team All-Pac-12, consensus All-American in 2021, and that 2021 season was awesome. 78 tackles, 6 interceptions, 12 PBUs, 1 forced fumbles. He had 11 interceptions in his career, so 38 games, a 3-year starter, a finalist for the Jim Thorpe Award in his final season in 2021. I mean, that is stocked full of bullet points of things on the resume. And I think, like, the first thing that pops into my head when I hear this hiring, it's like another example of Dan Lanning doing an excellent job of connecting the past with the present and using it to build a bright future. You know, sometimes when coaches come in, and maybe Mario was an example of this, when coaches come in, sometimes they want to do things their way. They want to establish their own program, and maybe they don't embrace the history, and maybe they don't embrace the past as much as they should. But Dan, right away at his introductory press conference, he says, hey, I want this program to be a program that people who played here and that people who live in the state and that are Oregon fans, that they can be proud of. I mean, he brought back Nick Aliotti back at the spring game. I think Mike Bellotti was invited, but he wasn't able to make it. Kristen Gonzalez, Bucky Irving. I mean, these guys were all at the spring game, and all of these former players are invited back. I think, like, what I think this situation sounds like is after Verone's NFL career was finished, he wanted to get into coaching. And Dan found a way for him to be able to get on the staff. Dan talked about it recently at a press conference, and I think he had some really good things to say that really back up the connection that Lanning is forming with some Duck alumni.
We really care about the guys that have given so much to this program. And Verone's a great example, was a great player here, went on to have an opportunity in the National Football League and a chance to keep playing. And I think he realized, hey, I want to still be around football. And when you can have guys that had great experiences at Oregon, that love this place like we love it, that want to be back here, I'm excited to see what he's going to be able to do for us. And I know that all that'll come with hard work and just finding a way to make our team better.
It's just a way to continue to build what is being built at Oregon. And you talk about, hey, Dan says, we want people who love Oregon as much as we do. And to be able to kind of have people to continue to spread that message and then to be able to get them on the staff, I think is awesome. I think it's a great combination. It's a great connection to be able to have Verone and his great experiences at Oregon and his great production to be able to continue further doing what they've been doing on the recruiting trail in the secondary, because they've been a Death Star. They're getting great players. They got them for those 4 true freshmen that are coming in this year, and then 2026 certainly looks pretty good as well. I mean, this guy, he's got a Texas connection. He's from Carrollton, Texas. It's a suburb of Northwest Dallas, as well. So you combine that, you combine how successful he was in the program, and then you combine what already Chris Hampton is doing. Yeah, I think this is a win-win all the way around. Don't get me wrong, I do enjoy the creative process of coming up with topics and talking to you about them on this show, but I certainly also appreciate it when you guys help me out with content and topics to talk about on the show, and that's exactly where I want to go right now. I want to go to the TSOW Talk and Text line via text. Axel from Derby, Connecticut, by way of Gresham, Oregon. There are some people, some smart people, that may call Gresham the gateway to the gorge. He says, but I have a few questions about Oregon, being a lifelong Duck fan and living in the Gresham, Portland area most of my life. I personally trust Dan Lanning. He's done nothing but deliver for the Ducks, but I almost feel like the media is so conflicted about Oregon. I see nothing but talent with this roster. I almost feel that even without Evan Stewart, we'll be A-okay. I feel like Kenyon Tariq will take a big step up, but I also feel a lot of people are underestimating what Oregon's run offense will be next year, and even the wide receiver room with a lot of hungry guys looking to make an impact. I don't feel we have the same performance as last year, but I could be wrong. I think he's talking about the opening game there. I personally feel Oregon goes 11-1 with either a loss to Penn State or a wacky game at Iowa or USC, but I feel very confident about the Ducks, and it wouldn't surprise me at all to see if Oregon finally gets to hoist the Natty before the Lanning era is over. I want to see what you think here. But I love the show, and it was awesome seeing you in Oregon. Makes me reminisce a lot. Thank you for your time, and Go Ducks, man. I've been reminiscing a lot about my trip to Oregon and looking at pictures and looking at videos a lot lately in my very limited free time. But thank you, Axel, for the question. Thank you, Axel, for the text. And there's a few things and a few bullet points that I want to talk about as it pertains to Axel's questions here. He talked about, people nationally or other people, not you and I here on TSOW, but underestimating the run game of the wide receiver room, because I'm like, hey, I love the run game and don't sleep on the wide receiver room. Let's talk about the run game first. I'm extremely high on this run game. I think that this is going to be probably the best run game of the Dan Lanning era. And they've had 1,000-yard rushers, right? They've had Bucky Irving, and they've had Jordan James. I think a big part to the run game specifically, I think why I'm so confident about it, and this is certainly not the first time I'm saying this, but it's the offensive line, man. Like, the offensive line is at a much higher starting point than it was last season. And I thought the offensive line towards the middle of the season and late in the season did really well as far as producing what they did in the run game. But when you factor in guys like Emmanuel Preynon, guys like Alex Harkey, that's a really good run blocker, and World and Poncho coming back, and Bedford probably getting his opportunity at right guard, I just feel confident that the run game is going to get off to a faster start this season and thus have a higher ceiling when it really matters at the end of the season. And the end of the season is, I think, where the depth is really going to come into play. Of course, you're going to see the rotation beginning of the year. You're going to figure out the rotation exactly, who's going to get as many reps in the middle of the year. But once we get to the end of the year, because you look to the last 2 seasons, 2023 against Washington, Bucky Irving banged up. Not full go, and that certainly affected things. last year, Jordan James getting banged up in the Rose Bowl. But now you have Mekhi Hughes in there. Now you have a fully healthy Noah Whittington, where I think he's poised to have maybe the best season of his Duck career. You have somebody like Dink Riggs, and then you go down the list and you look at Jaden Lamar, you look at Jay Harris, you look at these young guys in this room. It's just crawling with depth. And once they get to the end of the year, okay, even if there is an injury, there are guys that are going to be able to step up into that backfield and be great players. But throughout the season, I think the big key is why I think you're going to see a lot more of a rotation. So Mekhi Hughes and Noah Whittington are both fresh and are both on the field when it matters in the most important games of the season. And that has not been the case, certainly, over the last 2 seasons. And I don't know. Bucky Irvin was a great running back, and was a great running back last year for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers in the NFL. But I don't know if there's a Bucky Irvin. Mekhi Hughes, he could get to that point, maybe. Maybe Noah Whittington, saving the best for last. So I don't know if there's that type of talent. But here's what I do know. I'm pretty damn sure that there may not be a Bucky Irvin, but I know there's 2 guys better than Jordan James. I really feel that way. Jordan, I thought he was a good running back. I didn't think he was a great running back. I didn't think he's a guy that could consistently shed tacklers, right? You kind of get him, you get good blocking. He's able to find the hole. He's able to do what he did. 1,200 yards last season. But I think now you have guys on this team that can truly take it to the next level. They can break tackles. They can turn a 5-yard run into a 15-yard run. So I think that depth is really going to be able to shine this season. He also talked about, hey, maybe Oregon could have a little bit of an upset, a wacky game, as he described it, against Iowa on the road or home against USC. Those are 2 games that people are looking at as maybe potential upsets. A lot of people will be like, all right, we got to get Oregon to 10-2. All right, they're losing all of this talent. Maybe they'll take a little bit of a step down. Who do they lose to? Penn State, of course, on the road is going to be extremely difficult late in September for Oregon. But here's what I want to talk about with these 2 specific games that Axel brought up. Dan is a guy when he has an opponent that is less talented than his squad, where Oregon is clearly the better team. They don't really fall into this upset trap. They're extremely prepared and extremely ready in those situations. That's why I'm like, yeah, could USC and Iowa give the Ducks a challenge this year? Yes, absolutely. But, man, with the talent on this roster and the talent on those rosters, I just don't see a loss. But that's how I stand right now. Maybe I'll feel a little bit differently as the season goes along. Like Iowa specifically. That Kinnick is trust me, that is a tough environment, especially out night. That's a tough battle. But Oregon proved last year that they can win in a rock fight. They can win in a Big Ten West type of game, and that's kind of the way Iowa wants to play. They want to suck you into their style. Come to the dark side, punt the ball, play defense, run the ball. That's how they want you to play, and that's how they're successful because they perfected that type of game. But Oregon proved last year that they can win multiple ways. They can win playing ugly, and they won that game against Wisconsin with defense. Mateo Uyunglele had a fantastic game, of course, capped off by that interception at the end. So they have a great ability to adapt. They have a great ability to adjust. I think that's what's great about this Oregon team. That's what's great, I think, about this roster this season. And then you look at USC. Here's the thing about that game. That crowd at Autzen is just going to be jacked, and it is going to be a true 12th man. You can talk about 11 on 11 all you want. We saw how big of a difference the crowd was last year against Ohio State. Maybe it was the factor that put Oregon over the top in that contest. Yeah, the team on the field played pretty damn good as well on that specific October night. But in that against a Pacific rival like USC, that's going to be able to play a difference. And the offensive line for USC is still a little bit concerning. They had a guy that transferred in, DJ Wingfield, I think his name was, and then now he's not going to be eligible for the season. They were really depending on him to fill a gap on the offensive line. But I think you've seen it with USC recently. You can have the best quarterback. You can have the best receivers. You can have all of this stuff, which they have really good receivers this year. But if your offensive line isn't good, you're going to get a 7-5 season. You're going to get a 6-6 season. Look at Caleb Williams during his last. He was running around all over the place. Now that's he plays a lot of hero ball, but his offensive line certainly didn't help him. Look at last year when Miller Moss is taking a lot of these hits. They had talent on offense, but quarterbacks didn't have time to really decipher what they wanted to do. So, and then you factor Oregon's defensive line going up against that group. I think that's a matchup that certainly favors Oregon. So I know people are trying to pinpoint maybe, hey, where's going to be the upset, but keep looking. I don't think it's going to happen. I predicted Oregon to go to 11-1 this season. He finished things off with saying, hey, Dan Lanning, I think he's going to win a natty when all is said and done. I'll say this. I think this season, with a lot of Dan guys and a lot of guys that have been developed over the last couple of years, I think it's going to tell us a lot about how close or not close the Ducks are, I think, to that point. If the talent is as good and the depth is as good as we think it is, and these guys have truly been developed to be great players, then I think we're going to see, okay, this team's close. Whether it's this year, whether it's next year, whether it's 2027, like that, there is a window. And 2025, especially 2026, and then going into 2027, I think there's a big window for Oregon to possibly hoist their first national championship. I believe it will happen. Winning multiple national championships is going to be very difficult. It is more difficult than ever to win a couple in like a 5-year span. With the playoff, of course, with the portal, you can't maybe stockpile all of the great players and keep them away from other teams just like you were able to do in the past. So it's going to be tough, but I think Dan, I'd feel pretty comfortable to be able to bet my own money that Dan will win one national championship within the past 5 years. Thank you, Axel, for the question and comment. You can submit your own on the TSOW Talk and Text line 541-357-6390. I can see it now. I can hear it now. I can almost imagine what the post-game show is going to be like after 60 minutes of football are played on Saturday. People are going to look to, oh my God, did you see that guy? He's going to be an all-conference player. You see that guy? He's going to be an all-American player. Do you see that guy in the second half? Yeah, I know the game was out of hand, but man, he made some really big plays. He's going to be making a big impact. Guarantee it. Write it down. Book it. But I think it's worth keeping in mind that week one is just that. It's week one. It's a starting point. This is a long season. This is a marathon of a season, folks. But I think week one is also a big proving ground. I think you're going to see a lot of players on the field early in this game. I think you're going to see big rotations at key positions, but more on that maybe in just a little bit. I was scrolling through some of the press conferences this week, and I thought I saw some, and I heard some really good, really insightful things as it pertains to this from both Dan Lanning and Bryce Betcher, with week one just being the start.
Well, I think regardless of result, or whoever we are on Saturday, I hope it's not remotely close to who we become, right? And you always talk about becoming, the best version of yourselves, and I think we're a long ways away from what we could become, but I think this will be a good starting point to assess exactly where we're at.
I know there's a lot of guys on the team that have something to prove in their position. Come whoever starts, game one, week one is not going to be starting at the end of the season. It's always determined of how you play and proving yourself right and proving others wrong.
A lot of new faces, so it's going to be who goes out there and proves, what they can do. And those will determine the spots that go up. And then just going in, I think every year the offense has something to prove. The whole team has something to prove. So I think it's about going out there and establishing our identity going into this year.
Also through Kenyon Sadiq at the end of that soundbite. Now, when we talk about the proving ground, I think the way a lot of people go is like, oh, these young guys have to be able to prove that they're going to be able to step up into bigger roles. And I get that, and I certainly understand that, and that's certainly correct. But I also want to add this. There's going to be veterans on this team at key positions on this team that are not guaranteed anything. If you're good enough, you're old enough. Folks, we've heard that before, haven't we? So not only is it these young guys that are going to be able to get the chance to shine and prove it, but you've got veteran guys that are being pushed by these younger guys. It's such an interesting crossroads, this roster, because you do have experienced guys at a lot of position that have been with this program for a while. But then you've got 5-star players, you've got 4-star players, you've got highly hyped and anticipated players, guys that we've been hearing a lot during fall camp about, and they're going to be looking to take some of those opportunities away from these veteran players. So these veteran players in a game like Montana State, you just can't coast through it. You got to prove that you're a better option, that your experience plus your talent is a better option for Oregon going forward to be able to reach their ceiling than it is these young guys. I mean, Dan, I think it was last week, talk about, hey, I'd rather have talented players than experienced players. I want the best players on the field. If you're better at covering in man covers than this guy, that's the guy I want. I don't care if you're a freshman. I don't care if you're playing high school football last year. I don't care if you were all Big Ten last year and you're transferring in. It doesn't matter. I just want the best players on the field, and I love that mentality because sometimes now when you bring in these portal guys, they almost have a little bit of, I don't want to say guarantees, but they maybe have some things with them when they come and be like, okay, I did this at this university, and now I'm transferring here, and I'm going to take that and I'm going to have the same opportunity that I had here. And I don't think that's all the case. So I think the proving ground actually certainly goes both ways. I think when we look at some of the young guys specifically, I got a whole list here that I'm looking forward to right now. First one that really popped in my mind, Brandon Finney, based on what we heard during fall camp. I know Naeem Offord is certainly going to be a guy that I'm going to be looked to and see where he stands, but Finney is a guy that people are like, running with the ones? He might be good enough to start with. Where is Finney? Where is Offord? Or either one of those guys playing at the star position? That's one thing I'm really looking forward to really seeing is like, who kind of proves that they should be in certain spots in the secondary as well. De'Aaron Hill is another guy we've been hearing a lot from in fall camp. Is he a guy that they try to use to take advantage of his speed and try to get him on the field right away? Jade Lamar is also a guy that's maybe like they've used his speed in certain situations in the past, but De'Aaron Hill getting a lot of press as well. I mean, Jordan Davison, big thunderous running back. Do they use him in goal line situations? I mean, Roger Sailapaga is a young guy coming off of an injury that is maybe looking to push Jamari Johnson, maybe at tight end too a little bit. That's where you get like, hey, a guy transferring in that I think we all had pegged as tight end too, but maybe there's some rumblings out there that maybe it's Roger Sailapaga that could push him for that tight end 2 spot. You look to the defensive side of the ball. I mean, they're all over the place. I mean, Elijah Rushing, Aiden Breland, Nasir Wyatt is somebody that came onto campus as a freshman. He put on a lot of weight because he needed to put on a lot of weight coming out of Mater Dei. That was a name that came out of Tosh Lupoy's mouth in a recent press conference. He's got a tremendous amount of explosion. I think if you get like a NASCAR type of rush package, I think Nasir Wyatt with his speed coming off the edge is somebody that could see time in there as well. I mean, Braden Platt, Ife Obadegbu, Aaron Flowers. I mean, the list goes on and on about young guys that are just chomping at the bit, that maybe they've been waiting a year, maybe they've been waiting 2 years. This game is their opportunity. This game is their proving ground, I think, to be able to take it to the next level. And I think where I want to finish with this is, well, there's a couple of things. First thing I want to say is like, it's an evaluation period for key positions, like wide receiver, defensive back. Those are the ones that really stand out. Defensive line. Now we know that like Bear Alexander is in the battle with some of these other guys. So I think you're going to start to maybe set the tone and find out exactly who's going to be the big playmakers at these positions. That's why I think you're going to see a big rotation at like wide receiver. You're going to see a big rotation at defensive back early in this football game because they know they have the talent to win this game, really no matter who is playing out there. So they want to see as much in impactful game situations from as many people as possible. And like week 1 is a 4-part game evaluation. It's a 4-game evaluation getting ready for that Penn State game. I mean, you look at all these teams. I mean, you look at Oklahoma State, not a good team. Northwestern, bottom of the Big Ten. You look at Oregon State. Like, this is the point in the season. Like, this season is going to be divided into segments. And I think the first segment of the season is figuring out who's going to give Oregon the best chance to go into Happy Valley and to get a big-time win. Proving ground all over the place at Autzen Stadium. Who proves it? I can't wait to find out. Remember Jock Jams from back in the day? Welcome to the main event. And now this is the main event of the show, and I think that this is the main event that we've been building up to the last 9 months or so here on TSOW, and ever since the 2024 season ended for Oregon. It is our week one. It is our game one, game preview, and prediction. The 7th ranked Oregon Ducks will host the defending FCS runner-up, the Bobcats of Montana State from Bozeman, Oregon. 27.5-point home favorites. The over-under on this game is 56.5. It all kicks off 1 p.m. Pacific time on Saturday on the Big Ten Network. You know, when I first start of where I want to focus on, of where this game is going to be determined, it's where most football games are really determined, and that's at the line of scrimmage. But Montana State is a football team that prides themselves that their identity is being tough. It's running the football. It's having great play at the line of scrimmage. But I want to start with the Oregon offensive line. I think there's going to be a lot of eyeballs. My eyeballs are certainly going to be on it. And I think the way that last year's game against an FCS team started and how this offensive line had kind of a little bit of a slow start, maybe trouble coming together to start the season before they made the move with Poncho at center against Oregon State. I'm looking forward to seeing how this offensive line is going to be able to gel together. Are they going to impose their will like they should? More on that in just a minute. But this is a group that I think I'm really intrigued to see exactly how they're playing together as a unit, because the offensive line is going to allow Oregon to just do whatever the hell they want to do. Right? If they're playing at least at a B level, if they're playing at a B minus level, Oregon is just going to be able, they're going to be able to throw the ball. They're going to have time to distribute. They're going to have run lanes that are going to be able to open all afternoon long at Autzen Stadium. Now, we know Montana State, we know they want to run the ball. They wear shirts at practice that say, run the damn ball. And then that's where we flip to the other side of the lines for the Ducks, and that's where the defensive line, I think, is going to have a lot of attention on them. The run defense is a focus for this team in fall camp. Was not a good finish for the Ducks in terms of run defense last year. Montana State has one of the best offensive linemen in the FCS. Right tackle Titan Fleischman is somebody that you got to imagine has been circled on the game film, has been circled in the game planning. 6'4", 300 pounds, a preseason FCS All-American. Last season, he was a third-team All-American, finished the season ranked 5th among all FCS offensive linemen overall by PFF, and 3rd in run blocking as well. So, Amari Washington, Terrence Green, Tion Gray, what's interesting about all of these guys are 330 plus. Oregon should dominate at the line of scrimmage on both sides of the football because of their sheer size. Now, this is one of the best trench groups in the FCS. But I think this game, when I look to the line of scrimmage, is all about, okay, that's nice. That's nice that you've got one of the best O-lines in the FCS, and that's great. Great program, but this is the Big Ten. This is Oregon. We're one of the best teams in college football, and Oregon has one of the best trench groups in all of college football. Like, Montana State averages 302 pounds on the offensive line. Okay? 302. You got Amari Washington, Tion Gray, Terrence Green, guys that I just talked about before. They're all in their 330s, so they're outweighing MSU by, they got 30 pounds on them up front. Okay? Montana State, 285 and 300 for their starting defensive linemen. You look at some of the other guys that are going to be in the depth of the rotation, they're below 300 pounds. Oregon's offensive line averages 319 pounds. I just want to see Oregon just push these guys around. I want to see Oregon face off a team that has a philosophy, that has an identity of running the football and being physical, and be like, yeah, we're way more physical than you. Our guys are just bigger. Our guys are faster. our guys are stronger, and I want to see that all game long. When you look to this run game, I think for Montana State, it's a run game that has some eye candy to it. It's a run game that has some motion to it, and run defense has been a pillar of what Oregon has been focusing on. Dan Lanning and Bryce Betcher talked about it in this week's press availability.
Had a lot of success. They've outrushed their opponent, and several of their wins. Like that's a common denominator for them. When they outrush their opponent, they win the game, right? So we have to do a great job of rushing more than they're able to rush and stopping the run when we get those opportunities.
Regardless of the opponent, if we play our brand of football, I think good things will happen for the Ducks. But one of our big pillars going into this season is being able to stop the run. We did it at times last year, but in those big games, I feel like we struggled at times. And as a defense, if you stop the run, you're the best at doing that in the nation. Big chances you're going to go far. And I think them being, high in rushing yards last year, I think you said first, it's, a great opportunity for our defense to show that, we can do that and, stick to one of our big pillars this year.
I love that last sentence that Bryce Betcher said. It's going to be an opportunity for them to gain confidence in their run defense kind of right off the bat, because it's simple. You stop the run, you stop the Bobcats. They want to run, and they want to run a lot. Now, they have a new offensive coordinator coming in. Division II, Colorado School of Mines. So it's kind of tough to get in and absorb what they're going to do from a film perspective, what he did over there. I think it's a proven formula. I don't think that there's going to be a ton that changes. And I think I look at the roster and I look at the personnel for the Bobcats in this game, and I think they're going to do pretty similar to what they've been doing in years past. Look, 68% of MSU's offensive plays last season were rush plays, and they led FCS in rushing by more than 1,000 yards of the second-place team. So not only they're going to run the ball, but they're going to do it a lot. And sometimes when you face a team that's just that they're stubborn and they're that adamant, they can just put their helmet into you play after play after play, and eventually they try to wear you down. I don't think that's going to happen because of what I said at the beginning of this. Oregon's size is a gigantic advantage up front against the Montana State offensive line and against the Montana State defensive line. But in order to stop this run, that Oregon defensive line, they need to be able to use their size, get to the other side of the line of scrimmage, plug gaps. They need to be able to plug gaps because Montana State, they rely on being able to find that seam, whether it's a cutback, whether it's just hat on a hat, whatever. They rely on that to be able to create some explosive runs. Adam Jones is a 1,000-yard rusher, great redshirt freshman season, and you watch a lot of his highlights. I talked about this in the scouting report on Monday. You watch a lot of his highlights, and it's a lot of finding the seam and then going for 50 yards, going for 60 yards, going for 70 yards. Oregon needs to be able to take away all of those seams. And another thing that's worth noting, they've got Montana State has a transfer quarterback coming in Justin Lamson that the Ducks have seen before. He played at Stanford in 2023 when Oregon won 42-6 out there on the farms. He was 11 of 20 in that game, 106 yards, carried the ball 22 times for 32 yards. So being able to have that film, and he started a handful of games over the past couple of years for Stanford. So being able to have that, I think is very important. I think it's going to give Oregon, a little bit of an advantage. But you need to keep your eyes disciplined. I think that's the big key in this game. When you have a running quarterback and a mobile quarterback and reads and RPOs and that kinds of things, I think this is going to test, the sticking to your rules. That Bryce Betcher also talked about that during the press availability this week. So if they plug run gaps and if they stay to the rules, I think Oregon is going to have a lot of success defending this Montana State run game. And when you look to Montana State, I talked about how 68% of their offensive plays are run plays, 32% of their plays are pass plays. I kind of watch them on film, and they're not an explosive pass team. Okay, they're not a team where it's like, okay, run game's not working. All right, let's just flip the switch to the pass and create plays down the field. That's not what this is. Taco Dowler is probably their biggest weapon. He's also a weapon in the return game. So if you do halt this run game, Oregon has more than enough talent if they bring more guys into the box, they have more than enough talent out on the perimeter to be able to match up with the Bobcats one-on-one. That should not be overly surprising, really, to anybody at this point as well. You flip over to the other side of the ball. I think Oregon's got a tremendous opportunity to create explosive pass plays. Montana State runs but before I get into that, I want to talk about the structure of the Bobcats defensively. Montana State runs a similar defensive alignment. Now, alignment and post-snap, right, two very different things, but they run a very similar defensive alignment to Oregon where you've got your end, hand on the ground, sometimes in an upright position. You've got your tackle, you got your nose, you've got your rush guy, that is from that standing position, that edge guy that is now in today's day and age of college football. You've got your Will and your Mike in the middle of the defense, corner, safety, nickel. They call it a nickel, not a star, or that hybrid maybe like Oregon has. So you have that kind of 4-2-5 alignment that Oregon is maybe used to seeing throughout practice. And the reason why I believe that Oregon is going to have a ton of opportunities to create plays, notice how I say opportunities. I'll get to maybe that towards the last bullet point in this preview. But Montana State is losing a lot, I think, overall on this team. But in the secondary, I mean, they're starting two redshirt freshmen at corner, guys. I mean, Jace McMillan and Seth Johnson. Johnson didn't play at all last year. Okay, and McMillan played in 4 regular season games and 4 playoff games. These guys don't have a ton of experience. And we're out there, and when they're out there with Decorian Moore on the outside and the speed of somebody like a Malik Benson and the quickness of somebody like a Gary Bryant Jr. and the matchup absolute nightmare of someone like Kenyon Sadiq, I don't think it's going to go very well. I think that's a matchup that they're going to be able to, once again, have the opportunity to exploit much faster, much more athletic. I think Oregon's depth at wide receiver is just going to overwhelm them because those are just the top 2 corners. And then as you go further on during the depth chart, plain and simple, it's not going to be a good day for the Bobcats on the back end. Okay, and I think it's going to be a good confidence-building day for this wide receiver to be able to figure out who exactly are going to be the guys once we get later on during the season. But I think here's the biggest point when you have an FCS team right off the bat. Focus on you. Focus on Oregon. Focus on playing a good game, a clean game, and focusing on developing good habits. Dan Lanning talked about the cleanliness of what he wants to see as a goal for this team in this opening season matchup.
I just think always early in the season, you see teams that don't play clean. I think we even saw it in week 0 games, whether it's penalties, whether it's poor tackling, right? Your missed tackle rate is the highest it ever is at the beginning of the season, right? And I think last season, even though the game didn't necessarily go at the way we wanted, I think we walked away game 1 with 1 missed tackle, right? There were several teams that had several missed tackles, right? Early in the season, you see it all over tape early. So we have to tackle well and we have to play clean, right? Efficiently from an operations standpoint, what personnel's on the field.
And when he talks about, tackling clean, not missed tackles, that kind of goes into developing good habits. And maybe there weren't the greatest of habits towards the beginning of last season. So really starting off, I think, on a good front and a good foot is going to really help this team develop better as we get further down the road. That was kind of the soundbite from Dan a little bit earlier. Be like, hey, week 1, hey, that's great. Okay, we want to play well, but we're going to look a lot differently, and this team is going to get a lot better to once we get towards game 12 and once we get to the end of the season. Look, you want to focus on you because this is not like a conference matchup, obviously. This is not a game where you're going to be like, all right, we need to, it's going to be back and forth, and we need a game plan based on their weaknesses. You've got such a talent advantage, and there's such a talent discrepancy. You need to focus on you. You need to focus on getting better. You need to focus on Oregon. This is a game where if we know anything about Dan Lanning, if we know anything about Will Stein, they're not going to put too much on tape. That's why I said they're going to have the opportunity to go deep. But they could also line up at the line of scrimmage with a big size advantage on their offensive line, and they could be like, no, we're just going to run the ball. We're not going to give anybody. We're not going to show just how great Kenyon Sadiq is. We're not going to show just how great Decorian Moore is down the field, although you could see how great Kenyon Sadiq is run blocking and paving the way for Mackay Hughes, Noah Whittington, Dink Riggs, and the rest of these running backs as well. I mean, Oregon should be able to do close to anything they want, and that kind of ties back into what we said at the beginning. As long as the offensive line is doing what they do, and I expect them to have a really good game right off the bat. I think this is they can use this as a measuring stick to see exactly where everybody is. I think that's what you truly want to see from game one. You don't want to get off, obviously, to that start last year where all of a sudden you're like, well, now we're not in a situation to be able to get as many players as we want on the field, and now we're in this dogfight in the fourth quarter. You want to get into a situation where you're building a lot of confidence early, you're focusing on yourself, you're executing a scripted game plan to start off with, and you're just going off from there. That's, I think, the main thing and the main objective that you want from this type of game. I think Oregon has a big-time advantage at the line of scrimmage. They've got a big-time advantage on the perimeter. I mean, it's a high-powered Big Ten team against an FCS team. You know, even though they're the number 2 ranked FCS team, there's a big discrepancy, and I think you're going to see a big discrepancy in this game. All right, folks, it is time for my prediction. I'm sticking with the same score that I had in my week-by-week predictions about a week ago. I've got the Ducks 38 and the Bobcats 13. You know, I could see maybe it takes a couple of pulls on the old engine of the lawnmower to kind of get this thing going a little bit. I could see something maybe like 7-0, 7-3 at the end of the first quarter. But I think once we get late first quarter, once we get into the second quarter, I think that's when this thing is going to get going. That's when I think you can see 14 points, 17 points, multiple scoring drives in the second quarter, something maybe like a 24-3 lead at halftime. They come out really strong in the second half, and then they kind of coast. They get a lot of other guys on the field at that point, and maybe Montana State, they get a garbage time touchdown, maybe a garbage time field goal to get to that 13 point as well. So this is actually a Montana State cover. I think the original line was 24.5. Now it's, which would have been an Oregon cover, but now I've got Montana State plus 27.5 for this game, and I've got this one going under. I could very well see this one going over and Oregon easily covering the spread, and maybe I'm a little bit conservative with my prediction. Maybe I should have altered it a little bit, but I'm going to stick with my 38-13 score. 9 months. 9 months has all led to this. Ladies and gentlemen, a great preview and prediction edition of TSOW. All of the week one preparation is in the books. All there's left to do is tee it up and play a football game. We will see you for the post-game show following the game on Saturday. Enjoy your Oregon football Saturday, whether you're going to see it in person, walk across the Willamette River, across the bridge, into Autzen the O, revealing itself, or whether you're watching on the Big Ten Network. Enjoy it. Enjoy it. Until next time, I'm Ted LaRue. This has been That Show Out West.